Presenting Grandpa's Bear. And I think that's what it was on your sheet. All right, again, he's presenting Grandpa's Bear. This is Ben Claggett.
I'm reluctant to tell you a story today. When I've told it in the past, no one has believed me. But I'm going to give it one more chance. It's been many years, so here goes. It all started several years ago when I was in college at the University of Tulsa, and I joined the Outdoors Club. Sounded like a great idea. We went on a few canoe trips, had a great time, met some good people. And then the Outdoors Club decided to go on a hiking trip in Ozark National Mountain Forest in northwest Arkansas. So I was all excited. I like hiking. It's fun. So the four of us headed up there early one morning. And at first it was a lovely, beautiful hike through this low wooded valley area along Bear Creek. I don't know why they call it Bear Creek. I wondered, everybody knows there's no bears in Arkansas, but it was called Bear Creek. And we were really enjoying the day. And it was reminding me of my grandfather, who grew up in that area. I was remembering the stories that he used to tell me. He was kind of a legend in and of himself. He was known for climbing any tree, for jumping over canyons, for swimming in class 4 rapids upstream while spearing trout. He was one of those great men of old who we look up to, and I remember listening to his stories. I remember one of the stories in particular that he told me when I was a kid. It was a story that he would get real serious when he would tell me, unlike his other stories. And he would say, "Ben, it was one day, just after a light, warm rain, and I was hiking up in the mountains, and I saw what I thought was a bear. Since I was upwind of him, I followed him. And I followed him a ways until I got closer and closer and closer. It seemed like he'd never seen me. And I was just mesmerized with this bear. It was the biggest brown bear I'd ever seen in my life. And when I got close and he turned around, I noticed something very strange. This bear was wearing a gold necklace." Grandpa, that's funny. Funny story, Grandpa. So at the time, I really didn't think much of it. But I was remembering that story and the legends of my grandfather and his past as I was hiking, kind of reconnecting with my roots and enjoying my friends that day. And we continued along, meandering along Bear Creek, along the mountains of Arkansas. Unlike Colorado mountains, but still dangerous and vast in their own right. They were about 1,200 feet peaks there. And as we got closer and closer towards the end of our journey that day, the mountains started to get closer and closer to us as we started to get into a ravine, as the river kind of slowed down. We were just really enjoying the day and the trees and everything, and it started to rain, this light, warm rain, just as I was kind of starting to get hot. And I really didn't think much of it at the time, but I was just enjoying how it kind of cooled us down. And so as we were getting closer and closer to our destination, it started to kind of storm up and cloud up, and the heavier rain came, and we were starting to get wet and drenched, and we were getting really anxious to get to where we were going. My friend Frank at the time, Frank Lubsky was his name, he was taking us to a cave where we were going to stay the night. We were all excited about that. But we were getting wet, drenched, tired, we were ready to get there, and as we started to get into these cliffs, we had to navigate this little narrow ridge where we all had to walk. It was a little bit challenging for me because I was carrying the tent bag and the food packs and everyone's backpack too and the rifle. I was kind of considered the avid hiker there, and everyone else was a beginner, so I was taking care of all that stuff. And then we got to this 25 feet cliff that we had to climb up to get to where this cave was. And fortunately there was a rope that some previous visitors had left behind for us. And so Frank went first. He climbed up the rope, and he got to the top and said it was okay. He felt responsible, like he had to go first. And I said, well, I'll go next, since I've got all the equipment. About halfway up, the rope snapped, you know, all this extra weight on me. Fortunately, I reached out and grabbed a handhold there and was able to free climb the rest of the way up. So I dropped off all the gear that I was carrying, and since it was starting to rain heavy, everybody agreed that I should go down and get piggyback rides to the 2 girls. And we all said we needed to make it in one trip. Long story short, we made it to the cave, and we slept that night and refreshed. The next day, I woke up thinking about this adventuresome spirit. So I started exploring, and I found this little tiny cave off that you couldn't see. And I went into it, and I got to the back, and I found this area that looked like no one had ever been. And there was this light. I followed the light, and you wouldn't believe it. I found what was some kind of lost treasure, an old wooden chest, rotten wood, gold there. I picked up the coins. They said like 1465 on them. And then I heard, and I turned around. To my surprise was this bear, the biggest brown bear I'd ever seen, standing right there with a gold chain. Grandpa's bear!